the funeral service of a 19-year-old, Lusanda Mathabela, who was allegedly murdered by her ex-boyfriend and his friends in her home on Monday. On Friday, the Bella's Running Club held an awareness run to take a stance against gender-based violence and femicide in Mpumalanga. 2 suspects were arrested and made a brief appearance at the Nelspruit Magistrate's Court on Tuesday. They're expected back in court next week, Wednesday, for a formal bail application. SABC News reporter Nonhlanhla Jele is going to give us the latest update on that. Nonhlanhla, good morning to you, but certainly isn't a good morning for these families who have got to bury this very young lady. While details are still sketchy in terms of what happened, we know that there have been appearances at court. There's a formal bail application which will be heard next week. But talk to us a bit about the sentiments being shared about this life that has been lost so young.
Indeed, good morning to you, Crisalda, and to the viewers at home. I mean, the atmosphere, Crisalda, in this church, very sad. I mean, since 7 a.m. this morning when the service started, we've been seeing the family being inconsolable. Everybody taking to the stage and speaking of how Lusanda had a bright future. We hear that she wanted to live in South Korea at some point. And the family members saying they've been robbed. Friends saying she was a great person, how they've been robbed and how she died under the circumstances that she died in and how terrible that is. I mean, when the uncle Crisalda took to the stage to share what happened on that fatal day on Monday, he says he got the call, and when he walked into the house, he found her lifeless body lying there in a pool of blood, of course, with multiple stab wounds on her body, and that shattered him. He even went as far as saying to young girls, stay away from relationships, especially when you're young, because most things happen because people don't understand, especially young girls, saying that it is important for them to wait as much as they possibly can. Also saying to the justice system and to the police that they must do their job. He hopes that the perpetrators of this heinous crime are locked away and the keys are thrown as far as possible so that they do not see the light of day. Of course, Crisalda, as you mentioned in the intro, they're expected back at the Nelspruit Magistrate's Court on Wednesday for a formal bail application. I mean, these 2 young boys, we understand even on Tuesday when they appeared in court this week, one of them was rewriting his matric the following day, and we told in court that he's going to be writing from a prison. So you can imagine that these are age mates of Lusanda, people she trusted, people she was friends with, people she knew, and people we all think she grew up around, you know, people she thought wouldn't do such a thing to, especially in the comfort of her own home. Of course, we're going to be keeping our ear on the ground as to what happens to them next week when they go for the formal bail application. Many people taking to the stage once again, Crisalda, saying bail must not be granted to the 2 suspects and that they must spend the rest of their lives in jail because of this crime that they committed. Of course, the family not being the only one crying or saddened or shattered by what happened to Lusanda, the community and the provincial government as well, saying enough is enough. I mean, yesterday, Bella's Running Club held an awareness run in the morning to raise their voices against GBVF. Bella's is not the only one. The provincial government is also trying by all means to do something. We heard this morning that they're collating data as much as possible just to understand what causes these things to happen. Who are the perpetrators? The police are saying the perpetrators are people who live in the houses and in most cases are being protected. So the provincial government is also saying that communities need to come together and stand against GBV and report these cases. Of course, the Premier encouraging people not to withdraw GBVF cases once they have been lodged with the police, and that they should allow the law to take its course, especially where GBVF is concerned. I mean, cases are alarming. The numbers, the rates in this province are alarming, Crisalda. Every week we hear of women and children being killed by their spouses, by their uncles, being raped. So it's things that are happening on a daily basis, and the provincial government is actually calling on communities, on friends, on families to stand together to try and stop this curb or this pandemic, as the president had declared it a second pandemic in the country.